Hello and welcome to Shelve, Store or Sell. This is the show where I go through my comic book stacks. They are my short boxes of comic books, some of which I have not been into since I originally packed them from 2017 or prior for a big move to New Zealand, to figure out what is in these boxes, do I still care, and to kind of play a game of marry or kill with my comic book collection to see if I am going to treasure it somewhere visible, keep it around, or give it the boot. We're in the middle of this pretty large box from last episode. It is box 1083, and we've established that it's a box of random Marvel stuff. It's stuff that I did not know where to alphabetize anywhere else. It still has a number of sizable trade paperbacks in it, and we're gonna see if we can get through all of these. I don't know, because so far every book has been a new thing, and it's a lot of context switching. So let's see how we can do. The first thing here is Deadline. It's called Deadline. That's what I know about it so far. Let's see. It is some Daily Bugle stuff. Limited series Deadline by newcomer Bill Roseman. Yeah. So this is from, wow, 2002? So this is like really early in the Marvel trade paperback printing. The trade dress kind of looks standard, but it's interesting. They probably thought that this was going to be like a prestige thing. Because back in 2002, not everything got a print. So this was unusually printed back then. I don't know why. I guess they thought it was like a prestige kind of bookstore kind of thing. Especially you can tell from the back, it's not like a normal Marvel trade dress the way we see it now. It's got a lot of quotes on it from Maxim magazine, Wizard Comics magazine, the Peoria Journal Star. So clearly they were going for some kind of prestige with this. So this really is emblematic of my quest to own everything. I mean, there was a point where I just was like, if it was a Marvel series and it was from 1996 to 2010, I want a copy of that series. Do I need this? No. I think if there maybe could be a box somewhere that could be characterized as kind of like real worldy Marvel stuff, and it would have the damage control book from last time. It would have any kind of like Daily Bugle style books. I mean, who knows if I'm even ever going to read it? But again, it's not a sell quite yet, because I understand why I have it. It's probably never going to get reprinted, but it's definitely not a shelf. So back into the store pile. Ooh, here's a classic. Devil Dinosaur. The original smallest omnibus ever. This collects Devil Dinosaur 1 through 9 by Jack Kirby. And this was printed in 2014. There is an omnibus of it if you love Kirby, but I mean, I like Kirby, but I don't need... Sorry, the dust got to me for a second there when I fanned out the pages. And, you know, it's a classic. I have a Devil Dinosaur guide that shows you his many appearances, him and Moon Boy, and then him with Moon Girl in the current. You know, this is a classic thing. I kind of almost feel like I should put it on the shelf if I'm going to have Eternals on the shelf, because it kind of like goes with Eternals. It's a classic Marvel thing that gets referenced. I think it's a shelf. I think it is. I think you're going to find that I have a certain amount of affinity for this 70s stuff. And if I could say that below all the Epic collections, I could just have a shelf of like, this is the best of Marvel in the 70s collected in a coherent way. All of these, you know, side horror series and one-off things and Kirby things, whatever, I would have that whole shelf willingly. So I think you're going to see that those are always a shelf for me. I couldn't tell you the first thing about this. It's Marvel Max Dead of Night. Max had this series of kind of horror-ish comics. It's Dead of Night Devil Slayer. Dead of Night featuring Devil Slayer. It's awfully thin. It must just be like 3 issues. I don't know if this is 4 issues. I don't know if this is in continuity or not, honestly. It's written by Brian Key. It's got Chris Samney on art, which is cool. Pretty relatively early for Samney. This is what, like 2006, 7? 2009. Yeah, I don't know the first thing about it. I think I did eventually track down all these Max series and then realize after I tracked them down that like a couple of them are in continuity and a couple of them maybe aren't in continuity. It says the reinvented Devil Slayer takes Marvel's Dead of Night to terrifying new heights. That's all I know. So it's a store for now. Again, it's one of those situations of like, who would buy it? So for now, it's a store. It kind of indicates to me that I could probably have like a little subsection of horror stuff in one of these boxes instead of just an unlabeled box. Next up is Avengers the Falcon. Now, this is interesting. It collects some random Falcon stuff. Well, not random. It collects Falcon 1 through 4, which was a miniseries. And then it collects some Falcon stories from Marvel Premiere 49, Captain America 117 and 119, material from 220, and 276 through 278. So what it's not is like one of these proto-epics that happens now, like the Carnage classic, where it has every possible continuous thing, because I think there's more Falcon stuff. I think there's a couple of other stories that they could have gotten into. I do have a Falcon reading guide, so that would tell you all of those things. So my original urge as I saw it was just the cover without seeing how thick it was. I was like, ooh, it's going to be a shelf because I love these proto-epics. I don't know if it's a shelf just on the strength of having Falcon 1 through 4. Like, I don't know if that's enough for me to be pulling it off of the shelf all the time. Falcon, of course, has a really fun history where at one point he's like a mutant who could talk to birds, and then at one point he's some other thing, and then originally he was like a social worker, but did the Red Skull brainwash him and he was something else, and then they made him into a social worker, or did he brainwash him into thinking he was something else? He's got a long and storied history, which I'm clearly only vaguely familiar with. Next is Girl Comics, which is an early attempt at Marvel to get some representation behind the scenes. It features the works of Ann Nocenti, Jill Thompson, Colleen Coover, Amanda Conner, Leah Hernandez, Carla Speed, McNeil, and more. So this was, a mid-00s, I want to say. I don't know, it's 2011. It's a attempt at Marvel of just trying to get all of their female creators corralled into one place to give them some work. Hey, here's a hint, Marvel, maybe put them on actual books that are ongoing instead of just giving them something called Girl Comics. And it's always struck me as like misleading, because like, is it called Girl Comics because it's for girls, because it's about girls, like the girls of Marvel? I don't know. I have it because it probably has some X-Men stuff in it, and I was like, oh, I better have it so I can make reference to it. Like, here's Domino. Here's probably why I bought it, because there's Domino and there's Emma and there's Storm. So there you go. That's why I bought this book. I'm sure I got this secondhand. And that's why I have it. It's clearly not going on a shelf anytime soon. Okay, store. Ooh, okay. This, I can tell you right now, this is a shelf. This whole gang. Here we have Howard the Duck. We have Howard the Duck Complete Collections 2 and 3. Uh-oh. Man down. Where is number 1? Uh-oh. Houston, we have a problem. Where is it? Up here somewhere? Do I have it? Because these complete collections of this 70s stuff get stupid expensive. Well, okay. So we're on the hunt. Hopefully somewhere in this house I have Howard the Duck Complete Collection number 1, or else there's going to be hell to pay. But anyway, it's actually coming out in Marvel Masterworks now, which is just crazy to think that we're up to the point of Howard the Duck in Masterworks. It's just ridiculous. If you don't know what Howard the Duck is or who he is, he was kind of just like this ridiculous joke, almost like Mad Magazine hero inserted. He takes himself seriously. He's like, I'm a duck, so what? And Marvel's like, all the heroes are like, you're a duck. And he becomes a detective. He has, he saves the world. He gets the girl. It's just ridiculous. I have read some of it before. There's a lot of cool magazine content in here in black and white, which is pretty neat. So I clearly have to find that other volume. Hopefully I have it. And then I have this later Howard the Duck series, Howard the Duck Media Duckling, which is just funny to say. And then also a Howard the Duck Max, which I remember really, really hunting for. Like, it was really, really hard to find. And this is, I think it's actually by Steve Gerber, who is Howard the Duck's creator. But of course, being Marvel Max, it says 2002 on it. So this is pretty much like the complete Howard the Duck, if I can find that other book. This is a shelf. I mean, this falls into that category of 70s stuff, which I like, which I want to have on the shelf. And I'm going to be digging for that other one, because do you see my panic in my face, thinking that I might have missed it? Yeah, so we're going to find that, and then we'll have a Howard the Duck shelf. Next up, still in the classic 70s realm, is Machine Man by Kirby and Ditko. This is another one of these proto-epic collections. It's pretty big. It collects Machine Man 1 through 19, so the whole series. I remember at a point I was like, do I have to buy this to bind it, to ever get it all in one place? And so it was a pretty big deal that they put this out. People were excited. And it also has his appearances in Incredible Hulk 235 through 237, 234, and also Marvel Comic Presents number 10. I would love to read this. I've never sat down and read the whole thing. It's from 2016. So I got it before I was in the packing mode, but didn't have enough time to appreciate it. And it's going on the shelf. I'm feeling pretty good about this Marvel 70s shelf. This Machine Man original series from 1978. So it fits right in with this theme. Next up, No books were harmed in the great box 1083 disaster. It just tipped over backwards, but they were all safely in the box, so it turned out fine. Oh boy, this is I'm sneezing from the dust. I can't find the Howard the Duck Volume 1. The box is falling. This is a very tumultuous episode. What is this? It's called Marvel Europe. I have no idea. It's Marvel Europe. It's mature content. It says it has a story from Spectacular Spider-Man Adventures 114. Whatever that is. I guess, okay. It's a modern series. It's okay. It's a series of one-shot stories. Wolverine Saudade, which is a graphic novel. Daredevil and Captain America Dead on Arrival. Spectacular Spider-Man Adventures, which is a reprint, and Marvel Atlas. So what this is a number of modern stories that were created and told by like European BD authors. Saudade is actually a relatively notable one that I've heard of before, and didn't really fit in and kind of were semi-mature content. So they put them together with a Captain Britain story from the 70s, from the 70s run of Marvel UK, or I guess maybe early 80s. And then a bunch of like global Marvel handbook files of different countries, some of them real, like Italy, some of them not real, like Latveria. I never can say that. Latveria. So here's a fun question. Like, where would you shelve this? You don't need it for the Spider-Man Captain Britain thing because it's in the Captain Britain omnibus. So I don't know. I mean, I guess you could put it with Captain America because it's got that Daredevil and Captain America. I think I would maybe put it with Wolverine. I can't think of if that Wolverine Saudade is reprinted anywhere else. But it's kind of fun. In fact, thinking back, like I probably had this on my Wolverine shelf because that was what it was. I think this is a store, but it's like a store with a footnote because I have to get it to my Wolverine books. I think that's where I want it to be. So store. Okay, next up is this awesome Mockingbird proto-epic. So it's got this cover on it that's a modern Mockingbird cover by Greg Land, I want to say. No, Paul Renaud, who I love. It looked like the elf from Land. No offense, Paul Renaud. So but it doesn't have the modern issue that goes with. It is basically Mockingbird epic. It has every really important sequential Mockingbird solo story or background story from another book. It also has all of Hawkeye 1983, 1 through 4, which is kind of funny because it's been reprinted in a lot of places, but she is a full-on co-star of that book. So like, I love Mockingbird. She's one of my favorite kind of like B-lister Avengers. I love that she's a woman who's a super scientist and also a hero, because usually it's the men who get to be the super scientists and also the heroes. And I'm just really into this early Mockingbird stuff. There's definitely a shelf. It's definitely something I would sit down and read. She's probably never going to get like an omnibus. She already had her moment where she was on Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on the TV. And this, I think that's where this came from. She had her moment in the sun. She briefly had that ongoing series written by Chelsea Kane, and then she was part of S.H.I.E.L.D. And so they printed this in 2016. And it's got that, I like when they use this paper in classic stuff that, I mean, it's not, I don't know if I would call it a matte paper, but it's a much toothier paper that is not just full gloss, and it takes the color from this period really well. I just love this. Like, here's stuff that they would recolor in the modern day, right? Here's Khazar in full shadow, but his face is blue because it's an effect for the shadow. He's clearly just normal white Khazar. But, and if that got a modern recolor, they'd be like, why is his face blue? Let's just make it brown. Everything should be brown. So, it's got some black and white stuff too. And you know, I love black and white stuff. All right, well, that's Shelve. This is a fun box. Quicksilver. So this is Quicksilver's late 90s series. He's one of those characters that got his own ongoing while Marvel was experimenting with stuff in 1996, 97, and 98. It's his full series 1 through 13, and also a crossover into Heroes for Hire 115 and 116 and their shared annual 1998. I think that was called the Siege of Wundagore. So fun story. A lot of the stuff that you're going to see me pull out of the stacks were singles that I bought for binding purposes, because I was just going to like bind all of these books that I really thought Marvel was never going to release. But then as the MCU got bigger and bigger, because you have to think I started all these projects, I think like even before the Avengers movie came out originally, and was that 2012? So at that time, we didn't know that Quicksilver was going to be in the second Avengers movie. So I just assumed that this was never going to be printed. So I got the singles, and I remember prepping this bind because it seemed so straightforward. I had this exact map with these exact issues. And I remember like I scanned all the covers because I was going to make a back cover that looked like a Marvel Omnibus back cover with all the little individual issues on it. And I was like, this is a perfect bind for me to test out. And then I think before I ever got to send it out, this got printed. This was printed in 2015. So that tracks. That's around when I would have maybe been ready to start sending out some binds. And then I was like, oh, darn. So I'm clearly not going to bind it now because I have this. And buying this was cheaper than binding. Binding usually in the States was like minimum $20 to $25. And that was even like 6 or 7 years ago. This cost $34.99 cover price, which means it was $35, but I probably got 50% off in the first week it was out for $17. It was cheaper than doing the bind, even though I'd already sunk the money into the issues. So that means somewhere I have the Quicksilver singles, which are going to be a sell, but this is a keep. The question is it a shelve? It kind of is in this proto-epic zone. But I guess it is maybe a shelf because I think at some point on the shelves, you can't see this, but I do have some of the 1998 Heroes Return series, which is kind of to me like what comes after the Epic collections. And this fits into that. This is a rare box where I've never had the stuff in the shelf before, but the shelf pile is going to be almost like a whole square of one of these shelves, which is actually, I don't have that many squares left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares, and I'm giving one of these squares to all this 70s stuff. Oh boy. So let's just wrap this one up. So we have a similar book for Scarlet Witch. This is a shelf actually for the time being, partially because it just has Scarlet Witch 1 through 4, her miniseries, which fits into the end of the era of the Avengers West Coast. So I think I would probably put it with the Avengers West Coast epics. And then if we get up to the last epic in the Avengers West Coast epics, then I would probably sell it, but there's no guarantee that it'll have that. It also has some other Scarlet Witch random stories, material from Marvel Team Up 125, Solo Avengers 5, Marvel Comics Presents 60 to 63, and 143 through 144. So I think this is like an epic companion. You'll see, as much as we love the uniformity of the epic shelves, I do have a few epic companion type books through there. Then we have Century 1 through 8, Century Reborn. So this is the second Century series. Again, I think it's just in here because I had nowhere else to put it alphabetically, but it should just go into an S box. So it's going to be a store. I know I have other Century stuff. I'm kind of surprised it's not in here. So it made me think maybe I realized I was missing this. I think I had always confused the first Century series with this series, and then I did a Century guide, and I was like, oh, they're different. I'm missing one. And I got it, but I probably had already like packed that box, so I put it in this somewhat random box. So this is going to be stored to be reunited with the other Century material, and then maybe we'll like see it again. This stuff is just getting weirder and weirder as I'm getting to the bottom of it. So I have Marvel Strange Tales, it was kind of just this like get weird indie people to illustrate some spuriously continuity books, including people like Paul Pope. I mean, I'm not in a rush to read this. It's one of those ones like Girl Comics where I got it because my mission was to have everything. But this is a store. And then there was a Strange Tales number 2. I'm really dedicated to my art. This one has Harvey Picar, as well as Raphael Grandpa and some other folks. Jamie and Gilbert Hernandez, Terry Moore. Wow. So I know more people in this book. I'd be really interested to see Terry Moore do a Marvel story. That sounds impossible to me. And usually Terry Moore is in black and white. I don't know. So I actually find myself interested in looking through this, but it's got some wild art. Oh my goodness. I mean, just here's some totally wild Thor. Because again, it's in the style of like truly indie comics, not indie comics like Image, like really indie and underground comics. So I'm interested in looking through this and learning more about it. It actually seems more attractive to me than that first one, but I'm not in a great rush to put it on the shelf. No, I don't really swing that way comics wise. I really love my superheroes and my superhero universes. I love my glossy stuff. So I don't really have a lot of truly indie underground style comics in my collection. It's not to say I would never like them, but it's just not something that my knowledge encompasses. And it's not something you can just put your arms around like, oh, I'm going to get all of these indie creators because there's so many different people. They've done so many different things. It's so variously in print. And you know me, I like my organizational systems. There's 2 more books. One of them I know exactly what it is. This is The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl and the Great Lakes Avengers. But basically what it is it's just a lot of early Squirrel Girl stories. If you wanted basically all of Squirrel Girl before her big late 2000s revival as Bendis, actually maybe even 2010, that Bendis brought her in as the nanny in the Avengers Mansion for Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, and then she eventually gets her own series in Marvel Now. This is almost everything you need. I have a Squirrel Girl guide to detail all of that. The weird thing for me is that I'm not planning on shelving any of my Marvel Now, as I actually kind of want to get rid of it because I only want to have collections up through 2012. So in the past, if I had a Marvel Now shelf, I would have been like, which I very well could, I would just be like, oh great, this is going to be like a Marvel Now companion. I'm going to put it in that shelf. But now it's kind of just a lot of random stuff. And weirdly, what it represents to me now is that it collects the GLA 1 through 4 and the GLX Xmas special. GLA is Great Lakes Avengers. So even though it has a bunch of early Squirrel Girl appearances, including her first appearance, people forget she was created and originated in this Marvel Superheroes anthology book. I believe, I want to say by Steve Ditko. Yeah, wrote and drew. And I actually have that single issue because I have all of Marvel Superheroes. I was going to bind them. But guess what? I could probably sell this first Squirrel Girl for enough money to pay for several other binds. So maybe that's not going to be the case anymore. But upshot is, I would actually shelve this probably with Great Lakes Avengers over shelving it with Squirrel Girl because all of the full stories inside of it are Great Lakes Avengers. Do I have a Great Lakes Avengers shelf? No, because this is all of it. So it's a store. I mean, I'm not getting rid of it. I definitely have it for a reason. And it's kind of proto-epic, right? Because it's like everything's Squirrel Girl. But it's not really a proto-epic. And it's not a companion to a specific epic. So I think it's a store for now. Maybe in a future world where I have enough shelves to do that whole Marvel 2000 through 2010 everything, it would appear. I don't want to get rid of it, but there's nowhere for it to go. And finally, we're ending on a shelf. It is Super Villains Unite. It is the complete super villain team up. It absolutely could have been an epic collection. It has giant size super villain team up 1 through 2, super villain team up 1 through 14, and 16 through 17. Why does it not have 15? As it turns out, Super Villain Team Up 15 is a reprint of Astonishing Tales number 4. There you go. So it does not need to have Super Villain Team Up number 15, but what it does have is Champions number 16, which actually fits there in continuity, and it also has 2 Avengers issues, 154 and 156, 154 through 156, 3 issues. So what this book was, even though it was called Team Up, it was really mostly Doctor Doom and Namor just being total ridiculous scenery chewing hams and having their own plot line. At some point, will it get masterworked? I don't think it has been, but it wouldn't surprise me if it did. And then they'll probably epic it at some point too. In fact, I would not be totally shocked if they put it in a Namor epic line, which is about to start. Because at some point, Namor's series ends or pauses, and he is primarily in this. The thing though is, he's not in every issue. The last couple of issues of this, I don't think have Namor at all. So that would not be complete. Like this last issue is Hate Monger and Red Skull. So there you go. This is a shelf. I love it. It's more of that 70s stuff that I really, really enjoy. And it's probably the most succinct collection it's ever going to get. Again, unless they just decide to masterwork it, which I probably wouldn't buy because I already have it. Or if they epic it, which maybe I would be sorely tempted because of a complete epic shelf, but I can't imagine what else they're going to put in it other than this. So this is a good one. This is a good, and I remember when it came out being like, yes, because it just was so nice to get it all in one place collected. It was printed in 2015. So this episode had an overwhelming amount of shelves. It's weird for an unlabeled mystery box. So the only cells in this box are my 2 Champions paperbacks because they've been replaced with that Marvel Masterworks. And then I have a couple of like Shelve in a different place ones like Century and Europe. And then I have all of these shelves. I mean, it's a lot of books. It's a whole lot of books. And then about half the box is going to go back into storage. I don't know if I can safely pick it up, Lacey. Oh my gosh, we got to start going back to the gym if we're going to keep doing this series. So this is all that's going back into the box. So that is about half a box of comics making its way onto the shelves. That's the whole reason I do this. I had forgotten some of this stuff existed. I had definitely forgotten I had Howard the Duck complete collections. I'd totally forgotten that Supervillain Team Up even existed. This is the whole point of this. It's stuff that I haven't seen since 2015, 16, 17 that belongs in the shelf next to all these epic collections. So I hope you have enjoyed this lightning round through the end of this mystery box. There are so many more boxes to come, and while most of them are clearly labeled, many of them will have things that surprise me. So please continue to tune in for the next installment of Shelve, Store, or Sell here on Crushing Comics. Thanks so much for watching.